Hello, this is Rainy Day. Welcome to my other planned video for Diplo December. This is more of a puzzle sort of concept I came up with, like a logic puzzle, which I call, I guess, the migration problem. And the aim of the migration problem is to basically switch one country's centers completely with another country. And I guess this sort of posits, like, what are the limits to this? So I'm going to show you what I believe are both the lowest turns you need to do and also the highest turns you need to do, as in like the max. So but again, because which countries switch with which will change the length. So this one, I guess I'll show first, is a short one, and this one is, okay. Oh, so this one, okay, so this goes in a cycle. So England goes to Germany, it goes Austria to Italy to France, and then it's going to be Russia and Turkey switching. Okay, so with that in mind, spring 1901, I'm to York, England, and to North Sea. I think it's going to go by Heligoland. One thing I should mention is it can only have the centres of the countries taking, and this has the restriction of you cannot actually take any neutral centres. You can move into them on spring turns, but you can't have them by winter, because you wouldn't have any way of losing them. Which really affects army in Constantinople, because it cannot go into Bulgaria, because Bulgaria only borders supply points. So the army effectively cannot move through here, and so if it's going to move, it's going to have to move via Armenia. Which I think, yeah, it's going to Smyrna's going to Armenia, Ankara holds Black Sea, Sevastopol goes in, Moscow going to Sevastopol, Warsaw to Ukraine, and St. Petersburg to Bothnia. Mainly, yeah, St. Petersburg to Bothnia isn't needed, really. But yeah. Germany is going to kill to Berlin, Silesia, Munich, Bohemia, Vienna, Tyrolia, Trieste, Adriatic, Budapest, Trieste. I think that's good, really. Yeah, Naples, Tyrrhenian, Rome, Venice, Piedmont, Marseille, Burgundy, Paris, Picardy, and Brest into English Channel. We're going to start convoying things over. So for 1901, yeah, so Picardy gets convoyed into Wales. There is some choice in regards to what gets taken, because you do need to keep the other nations' supply centres in mind, so that they don't have to disband units that they're working on transporting. But yeah, you can see Russia gets into Constantinople as Armenia gets into Sevastopol, so they exchange, so it stays the same. And no one else actually gains any supply centres, so everyone does move closer, but there is no winter 1901 because no one actually builds. So in 1902 we do have some more supply centre gains. Picardy is convoyed into Wales, Wales goes into Liverpool, York is convoyed into Kiel via its two fleets, which is only possible due to Heligoland, because it does need to get an army over if it needs to take Munich. But yeah, Constantinople gets Smyrna, and Turkey's armies are working up through Russia. Germany gets Budapest, Austria gets Venice, Italy gets Marseille, so I think, yeah, pretty standard here. And Italy's going to mid-Atlantic, I think, to take Brest. Which it does. I actually also forgot to mention that Austria's got went via Adriatic into Apulia, and then it went into Naples this time. Trieste moves into Albania, which I think the purpose of this is that I don't actually think it's needed. I think it's just moving out of the way. Yeah. So yeah, I think the reason why I didn't convoy into London is because this army is actually going to claim Liverpool while this one goes into Edinburgh, because the army navy can just take London. But yeah, Army Kiel goes into Berlin as Heligoland goes into Kiel. Turkey takes Warsaw, Germany takes Vienna, and Italy takes Brest. So at the end of 1902, we've got a lot of changes. I think the only one that builds is Russia. Has to disband because it's now on free supply centers. And Turkey could build if it wants to, but it doesn't have to. And as you can see, no nations are actually done, but everyone is one move off getting all of theirs. So for France, that's fleet to London. For England, that is army to Munich. For Germany, it's army to Trieste. For Austria, it's army to Rome. And for Italy, it's army to Paris. For Turkey, army to St. Petersburg. And Russia, to army to Ankara. So in theory, the minimum, as far as I know, you need is spring 1903. Although technically none of these get claimed until winter, but you do not need to do anything, so the full turn is just everyone holds, and then it looks like that in winter. As far as I know, that is the minimum you can do it in. What I guess is the max minimum is the way I determined what nations do here. So I want to try and get nations that have to travel the furthest to get to their places. So the pairings here are England is switching with Turkey, France is switching with Russia, and then Italy to Austria, Austria to Germany, Germany to Italy. It does feel quite short, but I don't know if you can. I don't know. I think if it is taking space from one of these ones, it's going to allow one of the corner powers to be able to get their one a bit quicker. So I think that this is the one that would take the most amount of time to do. So 1901, we've got, I guess we'll start with the England-Turkey one. Again, Turkey's army cannot go through Bulgaria, and so it has to, its armies are pretty much useless, I think. It really needs fleets, and so it's mostly just going to be focused on sending fleets down through the Mediterranean. And England is doing the same. I think initially I thought it could have been an interesting idea to have sent an army through Europe, which I think I do plan on doing, but then I abandoned because I realised that doesn't really work. Because it can't really approach by here, and it would have to convoy through sea, and at that point it's a waste. But so yeah, England and Turkey are mainly focusing on sea stuff. For France and Russia, I think my plan here is that Russia is going to be going via land, whereas France is going via sea through the north. This is a path that Russia cannot take because St. Petersburg's fleet is in the south coast and so cannot access Barents Sea. So yeah, that's what they're doing. I'm pretty sure I'd decide that I'm going to be using England as a stop pad for France to be able to gain more fleets. I'm pretty sure the move to Piedmont doesn't. I think the France's army in Piedmont, I think, is going via the neutral territories into Warsaw. I'm pretty sure that's what I plan. Yeah. And then for Germany, Austria, Italy, I think some are just generally moving out of the way. Nothing major thing I could talk about is 1901. But in full, we do have some, I think our first actual successful take in terms of goal progression, Italy taking Trieste. Russia does take Munich, but this isn't really for the sake of them going for their goal. It is more so them just needing to be able to stop off somewhere. Same thing with France going into Venice. They do not need it. That's going to get retaken at some point. But they're just stopping off here. It's mainly so that France and Russia can kind of reach each other without having to, it's a bit wider, having access to Munich and Venice. Gives sort of like a free wide toll structure instead of just Tyrol. Army Rome into Tuscany. I think, yeah, because now that that's out of the way, I don't actually know if this army has any purpose. I don't remember. We'll see. Yeah, Vineyard's going into Bohemia. No one else takes any. But yeah, France is in North Atlantic now. England's gone into Mid-Atlantic. And the fleet is now into the Aegean Sea. Oh, actually, this is another thing. Armenia's taken Sevastopol just so it has 4 supply centres so it can build another fleet. There's another reason why France is taking Venice is so it's up to 4 and so it can build a second fleet. Russia taking Munich would have the benefit of this happening, keeps them at 4 and so they don't have to disband any. Which again, since it's quite a long distance one, they kind of need to have all of theirs, ideally. Although they probably could. I'm trying to think whether or not I should just want to get rid of Black Sea now. I don't remember. But yeah, you can see in winter 1901 you got some fleet building. Germany disbands Heligoland Bight because it does not need it. It's attacking Austria, and there is not. No, it's not. It's attacking Italy. There's not really a need for a fleet because by the time, well, there are other countries that need the ocean more, especially Italy and Turkey. And B, it is going into here, and that's something that just its armies alone would be able to tackle just fine. And yeah, similar thing, disbanding the fleet in Albania because fleets of Austria have no use. And the fleet in Naples will also have no use, so that will disband once Italy drops down low enough, because the only coastal territory it needs it's already got. So, spring 1902, you see this convoying into Belgium, although realistically I could have just left this in Wales, I believe. Although it probably is still good to just get this army off of the British Isles and just sort of stuck randomly in Europe. Because again, I'm using it as like a launching pad for France. But yeah, France has got Mid-Atlantic and Norwegian now. England's gone into Western Med, whereas Turkey now has fleets in Ionian. Italy's completed another goal objective by getting Budapest, and Germany's got their first by getting Venice off of France. France is now in Trieste, and Russia's now got an army in Burgundy, so it's getting close to starting off its goals. In fall 1902, it does not actually take either of France's supply centres because at this stage France really needs them. We've got fleet in North Sea and fleet in North Atlantic, and the general plan is that it's going to try and convoy stuff over, and France needs 2 fleets to do this, and it cannot afford to lose any units, hence why France doesn't lose anything in 1902. Apart from Venice, although it does get Trieste in return as its 4th centre. Only other action here is that Turkey's now in the Tyrrhenian. Actually, hold on. No, it doesn't actually lose Venice because Venice goes into Rome. So Germany's completed its first goal. And Belgium's gone into Ruhr just so that England does not gain a supply centre from Belgium that it could not, because it cannot lose a neutral. So, France does have 5 supply centres but doesn't build anything. I guess because it doesn't need to. Austria disbands army in Vienna. Bohemia is going to be enough for it to be able to do what it wants to. And Fleet Naples disbands because it does not need to exist. But yeah. Spring 1903. Fleet St. Petersburg is moving into Bothnia just because Karaneit's in the way. And it holds the rest. For France, we've got fleet into Norwegian Sea. And Picardy is going into Belgium just so it has access to the North Sea, which Picardy does not grant. For England, we've got Mid-Atlantic into North Africa and Western Med into Tunisia. And that's mainly so Turkey can now push its navy past, because the navy would have to cross at some point, and this bottom left corner is a good place for them to be able to cross over without it really affecting anything. Germany gets its second Italian province with Naples. Austria gets its first German province with Munich. Italy technically gains its third Austrian province with Venice, but it still needs to retake Trieste at some point. France is going for Budapest, but it's not going to stay there because it is getting very close to approaching Warsaw. And I do not think I need to talk about anything else in spring 1903. So in full, we have North Sea convoying Belgium into Edinburgh. So we're starting to use England as a launch pad now. Norwegian Sea's going into Barents. In terms of the Russia stuff, again, Russia just holds because it does not need to do anything here. Western Med goes into Mid-Atlantic and Tyrrhenian goes into Leon. South Africa goes back into Western Med, now it's let one past, and Tunis goes into Ionian. So it's now getting close to taking over Constantinople, Smyrna. Budapest moves into Galicia, so France is one away from taking its first centre. And nothing else happens there. So in winter 1903, England has to disband, so it just disbands the army in Ruhr because it does not have a purpose. And Russia disbands Fleet Black Sea because it does not have a purpose. So spring 1904, we got for Turkey, Leon into Western Med and Mid-Atlantic into English Channel. So Turkey is now one away from being able to take its first centre, as is England with Ionian into Aegean and Western Med into Tyrrhenian. Army Smyrna moves into Syria just to move out of the way. For the Russia-France campaign, Russia does not do anything. France has a fleet into Norwegian Sea and Galicia into Warsaw. So France has taken its first centre. In the Central Europe conflict, you've got Austria taking its second German centre with Kiel. Berlin is moving into Prussia to move out of the way. Germany's going back into Rome because it will need this army in order to take Venice. Italy is retaking Trieste, and I do not think I need to talk about anything else here. So in full, we have France convoying from Edinburgh into St. Petersburg. So it's gained its second. Meanwhile, we've got Russia taking Paris because now that this convoy has happened, France can afford to lose units. I guess realistically it could have taken one of these in spring 1904, but it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, Turkey takes his first with London and moves into Mid-Atlantic Ocean. Similarly, England gains its first in Constantinople and moves into Ionian Sea. And nothing happens in Central Europe. So we're now on to winter 1904. And we have Russia's fleet in Bothnia disband. And that is all that happens here. I guess France is actually still on 4, so it doesn't need to disband any. Spring 1905, we've got Mid-Atlantic into Irish Sea and London into North Sea. So Irish Sea can go to Liverpool, North Sea can go to Edinburgh, so Turkey will be done in full. Similarly, England taking Ankara now, and with Ionian into Aegean, that can take Smyrna this turn, and that will be it for England. France is taking its third Russian centre in Moscow, and Russia now is taking the remaining 2 French centres. Austria is taking its final centre with Berlin. I guess it would. Italy was the first nation to have finished properly, so Italy does not need to do anything. And Germany is moving into Venice to finish off. So in spring, we officially have every nation, 3 more nations done with Russia. Well, Russia's not completely switched yet, so I guess it would be Austria and Germany next. Russia still needs to, I guess, lose Moscow. Although no, realistically has lost Moscow, so I guess Russia will also count as tied then. But yeah, France has Moscow into Sevastopol and St. Petersburg into Moscow, and that finishes off France. And then yeah, England goes into Smyrna, and Turkey goes into Liverpool and Edinburgh. And in winter 1905, we have everyone done. France and Russia are swapped. England and Turkey have swapped, and Austria, Germany and Italy have done their carousel. So that is, at least as far as I've done so far, the, I guess, migration puzzle. I do not know if there are any like patterns that would result in you having to go longer than full 1905. As far as I know, this is the max, and as far as I know, this is the minimum of, I guess, realistically, spring 1903. But yeah, that is that for now. I don't know if I'm doing anything else for Diplo December, so that is it. Thank you for watching.